Hello all, my name is Trevor Proctor and I'm currently studying middle grades education at Berry College. At Berry College in the middle grades education program, they make you pick two subject areas that you would like to teach in the future whenever you get a job in the middle grades. The two subject areas that I have chosen are math and social studies. Today I'm going to be teaching a short language focused mini lesson, and it's going to be over math content. So this is going to be content that you see in a math class and that you would learn in a math class. Boy, am I excited to teach today, so let's get started. Today, the focus for this lesson is going to be all about calculating percentages. This lesson over percentages will build off your prior knowledge of fractions. So we're going to first establish that background knowledge of fractions, that knowledge that you already have of fractions, and build off of it in order to learn about percentages and what they are and how to calculate them. So it is important that we first start out by establishing that background knowledge of fractions. Since this is a language-focused mini lesson, there will be two objectives of the lesson. Let's read those objectives out loud together so that you are able to see what the main goal is of this lesson and what we are trying to achieve through the lesson while you're learning the certain information you are in the lesson, which is to achieve these objectives. So let's read the math objective out loud together first. 1, 2, 3. The student will be able to list percentages of specified quantities as a rate per 100. Let's read the second objective out loud, which is the language objective. 1, 2, 3. The student will be able to verbally identify processes to find percentages. So here's an outline for our lesson. So if you want to, should help you guide your notes, and this is going to be exact order we learn things in our lesson today. So the first thing we're going to do is review knowledge of fractions, because remember, we're going to be building off that knowledge of fractions in order to understand percentages. So we're going to first get our brains warmed up with reviewing information about fractions. The second thing we're going to do is learn 5 key vocabulary terms that will be used in the lesson. The third thing we're going to do is learn how percentages are written. The fourth thing we're going to do is work through the process of making fractions and then converting them, the fractions into decimals, then converting them into percentages. The fifth thing we're going to do is there's going to be a short assessment of percentages towards the end of this PowerPoint presentation. Then the sixth thing we're going to do is close out the lesson with a review of what all was learned throughout the entirety of the lesson. You can take down this outline if you would like in your notes, pause the video if you need to do so, but this is just a brief overview of everything that we're going to learn in today. So we're going to start out our fraction review by defining what a fraction is. So a fraction, let me underline that word for you, represents a part of a whole, or more generally, any number of equal parts. So if you look over here to our right, that's exactly how you write a fraction, which is 1/8. And that is represented through the picture of the pizzas here, because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we would have 8 slices, but one of the slices is eaten. So we have 1/8 because we have 8 total slices and 1 slice was eaten. So that's the fraction of the pizza that was eaten would be 1/8. So we can represent a fraction that way. If you had trouble memorizing what a fraction represents and what a fraction was, please take this definition down in your notes now, as we will definitely be building on this definition throughout the entirety of this lesson. So pause the video if you need to take the definition down. Another important part of our fraction review is there's going to be a few questions I want you to answer. So the first question I want you to answer is, what do we call the top part of our fraction? So the top part of our fraction right here, which is circled in green, the number 1, what do we call that? Think about your answer to the question, then we'll discuss the answer as a whole class. The top part of our fraction is called the numerator. So that top part right here, the number 1, which is on top of the 4, is called the numerator. If you did not get this answer correct, please take the correct answer down in your notes now. Pause the video in order to get the correct answer down. Okay, another question, which is a review question from fractions, is if the top part of our fraction is called the numerator, then the bottom part of our fraction is called what? So the 4 with the circle, green circle around it, which is on bottom underneath the 1, what do we call this bottom part of our fraction? Think about your answer to the question, and then we'll discuss the answer as a whole class. The bottom part of our fraction is called the denominator. So that 4 that is circled in green that is underneath the 1 is called the denominator. The denominator, what I think of is down. So I think of down, and whenever I think of down, I think of below. So 4 is below, and then down is denominator. Down, both the D, so down and the D and down, and the D in the denominator is what helps me memorize that the bottom number is always the denominator. If you did not get this answer correct to this review question, please take the correct answer down in your notes. Pause the video to do so. Here's an example of what we just did in our review questions. So if you want to take another example down in your notes, you can go ahead and write this example down in your notes. So you have your numerator here on top, your denominator on bottom, and then you have your fractional bar separating the two. So pause the video if you need to get this example down in your notes too. Percentages. Now we will begin our new material for today. I want you all to discuss with a neighbor around you the following question. First off, have any of you ever seen percentages before? If so, where have you seen percentages? I'll give you 20 seconds to discuss this with your neighbor. Okay, 20 seconds is up. Some of the key vocabulary terms we are going to focus on in today's lesson are, the first one is fraction, which we just discussed, but it is very, very critical and it is very important that we understand the definition of a fraction so that we can understand percentages. So that is one of the very important key vocabulary terms of the lesson. The second one is percentage, the third one is whole, the fourth one is part, and the fifth one is decimal. You can take these key vocabulary terms down now, but there will be slides later on that will have the word and the definition that you can take down at that time. So if you need to take them down now, you can just pause the video to do so. Percentage. A percentage is a part of a whole expressed in hundreds. So please take this definition and this key vocabulary term down in your notes. Pause the video to do so. Part. And we're not talking about a car part here. We're talking about a part in math. When they're in a part in math is when there is a small piece of a certain total. So over here on the right, you'll see that there are a total of 4 animals, and the small piece we're focusing on are the dogs, which is why they're circled. So there's 3 dogs, and that's the small piece of the animals, which is the total of the 4 animals. So the part would be 3 compared to the total of 4 animals. Please take this key vocabulary term down in your notes along with the definition. Pause the video to do so. Whole, not a hole in the ground, which is spelled H-O-L-E, but a whole in math, which is spelled W-H-O-L-E, is the entire population or set you're looking at. So in the same image, this time we're looking at all the animals because we're talking about the total population. So all the animals would be considered the total population. That is why they're all circled. Please take this key vocabulary term down in your notes and pause the video to do so. Decimal. A decimal is just a point, which is a fraction written in a special form. So you can see these fractions down here at the bottom are converted into decimals right here. Draw arrows to them. You can see that that is just a fraction just written in a different way. So please pause the video to get this key vocabulary term down along with the definition. Now we're going to learn how percentages are written. The percent sign, which is next to the grades here, looks like a slanted line or slash with a dot on both sides. So let me circle that for you. So I'll draw that out. A slash with dots on both sides. This sign allows us to know that the number is a percent. So we can see that the grades are a percent. And grades are something that we encounter all the time. We get homework grades, test grades, and those are all percentages. That's why they have the slash with the two dots on both on one, a dot on top and a dot on bottom. Please take this information and these examples down in your notes. Pause the video to do so because you need to know how they're written in order to, so whenever we solve for finding a percentage, we have to be able to write the answer, which will be a percentage. So we have to know how to write a percentage. Finding percentages. In order to find the percentages of images here, we have to find the total amount of fruit you see in the picture here on the left. The total amount of fruit in the image that you see on the left is 10 because you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strawberries, 9, 10. And then you have 4 pineapples. And so if you add 6 plus 4, which will give you 10. So that'll be the total amount of fruit, which will be 10. This total will be used to help us calculate the percentage of strawberries in the picture and the percentage of pineapples in the picture. So please pause the video and draw out this picture and take down the total amount of fruit you see in the picture. Before we start calculating the percentages, can anyone show the class the sign for a percentage? Whoever showed the class the sign for a percentage, that is what the percentage sign should look like. So before we find the percentage of strawberries and pineapples from the image, can we identify the certain pieces that will help us calculate the percentage? So what are we supposed to look at in this picture in order to be able to calculate the percentages? Discuss in groups around your desk. Once everyone has discussed, one group will come to the board to identify what number represents the part and what number represents the whole, which will be used to calculate each of the percentages. So we're going to look over here, find the part, and find the whole in order to calculate the percentages. So the part. So there's 2 parts in this image. So we have strawberries, which are a part, and then we have pineapples, which are a part. The total number of strawberries in the picture, which is 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, is a part. So total number of strawberries in the picture is 6. So the part of strawberries is 6. The total number of pineapples in the image, which is 4, is another part. So if we're looking at the part of pineapples, it would be 4 because there's 4 in the image. So if we're looking at all the fruit in the image, that would be the whole. So the whole would be 10 because we're going to take the part of the strawberries and add it to the part of the pineapples because 6, so 6 plus 4, 10, which is our whole. Please take this information down. So stop the video if you need to do so. Finding percentage of the fruit in the image. If we want to find the percentage for each part, we will have to divide it by our whole. So that's what this will look like whenever we do that, part divided by our whole, and I circled that there. What does this look like? If you thought fraction, you are right on track. That is right. This looks just like a fraction. So what we're going to do is take that fraction and convert it to a decimal, and then we're going to convert it to a percent. We can use our fractions to get a decimal. Remember, a decimal is just a point, which is a fraction written in a special form. And here again is how we will write decimals. With our decimal point, decimal point, and then we followed it by numbers. And decimal to percent, we can take our decimal and multiply it times 100 to find the percentages we are looking for. So that decimal of 0.60, we're multiplying it times 100, and that's going to give us our percent, which is 60%. So we got to take it from a fraction to a decimal to a percent. Please take this information down in your notes and pause the video in order to do so. What are the fractions you think we can use to find the percentages of strawberries and pineapples on the whiteboard? Think about this. I'll give you some time to think about it. Pause the video to think about it. First step, we're going to first look at the fraction of how to find the percentage of strawberries. So the first thing we're going to have to do is find the fraction of strawberries. So we're going to take our part, which is our number of strawberries. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 is our part. And we're going to divide it by our whole, which is the total number of fruit in the image. So 1, 2, 3. So we have 6 strawberries and 4 pineapples. So that would be 10, which is our whole. So part over our whole, which is our fraction. And this will be used to determine the percentage of strawberries in the image. So we have our fraction, which is 6 over 10. So please take this information down in your notes and pause the video to do so. Second step, fraction of strawberries, and then we're going to convert that fraction into a decimal. Next, we have to take our part, which is 6, and divide it by our whole, which is 10. We're going to take 6 divided by 10, and so 10 can't go into 6. We have to add a 0.0. 10 can go into 60 6 times. We have to move our decimal up, so 60. So left with that, we can add our 0 here. So our decimal will be decimal point 60. That's our decimal for strawberries because that is our fraction 6 over 10. 10 equals 0.60 as our decimal. Please take this information down in your notes and pause the video to do so. Last step, we have to convert the decimal into a percentage. What is our last step we have to do to get our decimal to a percent? Think about this. Shortly, I'll give you 5 seconds. Five seconds is up. The last thing we must do is to multiply the decimal we got from our fraction by 100. Remember to include our percentage sign because we are working with percentages. So we first have our fraction here, which was 6/10, and then we have our decimal, which is 0.60, and we multiplied it out right here, 0.60 times 100, which gave us our percentage of strawberries, which is 60%. So please take this information down. This is a very important example, and this will help you to find the percentage of pineapples. So we now know how to find the percentage of strawberries on the image. Can you, on your own, find the percentage of pineapples in the image? The percentage of pineapples in the image that you should have got was 40% because you have 1, 2, 3, 4 pineapples. So 4 pineapples, which is our part, divided by 10, which is our whole, and that'll give us a decimal point of 0.40. So we have to take 0.40 and multiply it times 100, and that will give us 40% for our pineapples. Please take this information down if you did not get the correct answer to the percentage of pineapples in the image. Pause the video to do so. Now it's time for your assessment. For each of the fractions, find the decimal and percent. Please show your work in the box provided or on your own sheet of scratch paper. Once you have filled in all the boxes, discuss with a neighbor about the step-by-step process that was taken in order to solve the assessment and describe how you took the fractions and were able to find the decimal and find the percent to your neighbor. I will walk around, or the teacher will walk around in order to hear your discussions to make sure that you are able to describe how you were able to find the percent. So pause the video in order to complete this assessment. So now that we got the assessment out of the way, let's review our key vocabulary terms learned today. Let's say our 5 terms out loud together. The first one, fraction. The second one, percentage. The third one, whole. The fourth one, part. The fifth one, decimal. Those were our 5 key terms that we learned today. So here's a quick review of what we learned in the lesson today. A percentage is a part of a whole expressed in hundreds. You can calculate percentages as long as you have a part and a whole, which allows for a fraction to be written. A part is whenever there is a small piece of a certain total. A whole in math is the entire population or set you're looking at. The parts we looked at today is the number of strawberries and the number of pineapples in our image. The whole we looked at today is the total number of fruits we had in our image. A fraction represents a part of a whole, or more generally, any number of equal parts. We can then use a fraction to get a decimal, which is a fraction written in a special form. So we have our key vocabulary terms, and I'll go ahead and highlight those as we see here. Percentages. So this is all the key important information that we learned today in the lesson. So if you did not get the information down from the previous slides, if things were moving too fast, please pause the video now and please make sure you get this information down, as it is very important to have this information in order to understand what percentages are and how they work. Okay, and so here's the answers to the assessment. Teachers, if you are assessing them, please take down the answers. Students, if you're doing your own assessment, please take down the right answers and check your answers. So 1/4, the fraction 1/4 has a decimal of 0.25 and a percent of 25%, because we took that 0.25 multiplied it times 100. So 1/5 has a decimal of 0.2, because we divided 1 divided by 5, and then we multiply that times 100, and that'll give us 20%. Then 1/10 has a decimal of 0.10, multiply that times 100, and it got 10%. So please just make sure before you leave class today that you get these assessment answers down, teachers and students, so that you can assess your knowledge of all that was learned throughout the lesson. That's all I have for today. Thank you all for your hard work and attention, and I hope you all have a blessed day. Thank you again for all your time and allowing me to present my lesson to you all.